The transport ship shuddered violently as another explosion ripped through its hull. Taemin gripped the corridor wall, feeling the metal groan under his fingers. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the vessel, casting everything in an angry crimson glow. His earpiece crackled with panicked voices from the security team. "All personnel to evacuation stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Taemin had been through enough combat situations to know when things were truly bad. This was truly bad. The diplomatic transport was supposed to be traveling through neutral space, carrying representatives from Earth and the Valerian Empire to peace negotiations. Nobody expected pirates to be bold enough to attack a ship carrying such important passengers. He moved quickly through the corridor, checking each room as he passed. His job was simple: make sure everyone got to the escape pods. Most of the passengers had already evacuated, but he needed to verify every section was clear. The ship groaned again, and Taemin felt the artificial gravity fluctuate. That was a bad sign. The gravity systems were failing. "Security team, report status," he spoke into his comm unit. "East wing clear. We're heading to the pods now. West wing clear. Moving out. North section. We've got a problem. The Valerian delegate wing is blocked. Hull breach sealed the main corridor." Taemin's stomach tightened. The Valerian delegates were in the north section, including the princess. He changed direction immediately, running toward the north wing. Behind him, he heard his team leader shouting through the comm. "Taemin, where are you going?" "The evacuation order stands." "North wing isn't clear yet. I'm checking it." "Negative. That section is lost. Get to the pods now." Taemin didn't respond. He just ran faster. The corridor ahead was filled with smoke, and he could see where the blast doors had sealed off the north wing. The main entrance was completely blocked by twisted metal and debris. He looked around quickly, remembering the ship's layout. There was a maintenance shaft that connected to the north wing. It was small and would be dangerous with the gravity fluctuating, but it was the only way. He found the maintenance hatch and forced it open. The shaft was dark and narrow. Taemin pulled himself inside, using the emergency ladder built into the wall. The ship shook again, and he nearly lost his grip. Below him, he could hear the terrible sound of metal tearing. The ship was coming apart. It took 3 minutes to reach the north wing, though it felt like an hour. When he emerged from the shaft, the scene was worse than he expected. Fire suppression foam covered everything, and several of the walls had buckled inward from the blast. The air was thin, which meant the life support was failing too. "Hello?" he called out. "Anyone here?" He heard a voice, weak and strained, speaking in a language he didn't understand. Taemin followed the sound to one of the private quarters. The door was jammed half open. He squeezed through and found her. Princess Hannah, as she called herself in human languages, was trapped under a fallen support beam. She was conscious but clearly in pain. Her skin had a slight blue tint to it, which Taemin knew meant Valerians were in distress. Her large dark eyes fixed on him with an expression of both hope and fear. "Can you move?" he asked. She said something in Valerian, then switched to heavily accented English. "Gravity. Wrong. Cannot move." Taemin understood. He had read about Valerian physiology during his training. They were adapted to a specific gravity range. The fluctuating gravity on the ship was affecting her inner ear and balance systems much worse than it affected humans. What felt like disorientation to him was probably completely debilitating to her. "I'm going to lift this beam," he said slowly and clearly. "Then I'll carry you out. Understand?" She nodded weakly. Taemin positioned himself and lifted. The beam was heavy, made heavier by the shifting gravity. His muscles screamed in protest, but he managed to shift it enough for her to pull free. Then the gravity failed completely. They both lifted off the floor, floating in zero gravity. This was actually better for moving her. Taemin grabbed Princess Hana and pulled her close, then pushed off from the wall toward the door. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. A new alarm began blaring. "Warning! Hull integrity at 15%. Core breach imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately." They didn't have much time. Taemin pulled them through the corridors, using the walls to push off and change direction. Princess Hana was barely conscious now, her breathing shallow. The thin air was affecting her worse than him. Humans could handle low oxygen better than most species. It was one of those weird advantages Earth's harsh environment had given them. He reached the maintenance shaft and pulled them both inside. Going down in zero gravity was actually easier than climbing up had been, but halfway down, the gravity suddenly returned at full force. They both fell hard. Taemin twisted his body to take the impact, protecting the princess. He felt something in his ribs crack on landing. Pain shot through his chest. No time to think about it. He forced himself up, lifting Princess Hana in his arms. She was lighter than a human woman would be, but in his injured state, every step was agony. The corridor spun around him. He was pretty sure he had a concussion too, probably from when they fell. The escape pod bay was just ahead. He could see it through the smoke. Just 50 more meters, then 40, then 30. His legs felt like they were made of lead. His vision was starting to blur. Princess Hana whispered something in Valerian. It sounded like she was praying. 20 meters. The ship groaned, and Taemin heard the terrible sound of the core beginning to fail. 10 meters. He could see an escape pod with its door still open. 5 meters. Almost there. He stumbled into the pod bay and practically fell through the pod's door, laying Princess Hana on one of the seats. His hands were shaking as he strapped her in, then sealed the door. He slapped the emergency launch button. Nothing happened. He hit it again, harder. Still nothing. "Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth. "Come on, come on, come on." He looked at the control panel through blurry eyes and saw the problem. The manual override. The launch system had been damaged and switched to manual mode. He had to pull the mechanical release lever. It was on the outside of the pod. Taemin didn't think. He just opened the door again, stepped out, and found the lever. Behind him, Princess Hana was trying to say something, but he couldn't hear her anymore. Everything sounded muffled and far away. He pulled the lever with all his remaining strength. The pod shot away from the ship just as the core exploded. The shockwave hit the pod hard, sending it spinning. Taemin, still outside, was thrown against the wall of the bay. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was a massive Valerian warship appearing in the distance, its lights bright against the stars. Then nothing. Taemin woke up to the sound of something humming. It was a soft, musical sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He tried to open his eyes, but the light was too bright. He tried again, more slowly this time, letting his eyes adjust. The ceiling above him was strange. It looked like it was made of crystal, but the crystal was alive somehow, glowing with soft blue light. Everything was curved and organic-looking, nothing like the hard angles and metal of human construction. This definitely wasn't a human medical facility. He turned his head and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through his skull. He groaned, and a figure appeared beside him. It was tall and slender, with pale skin that had a faint luminescent quality. A Valerian. The being said something in their language, soft and flowing like water. "I don't understand," Taemin managed to say. His throat felt dry. The Valerian touched something on the wall, and suddenly a voice spoke in English. It was coming from a small device, a translator. "Please remain still. You are recovering. You are safe." Safe. That was good. Taemin tried to remember what happened. The transport, the attack, the princess. He had saved her, gotten her to an escape pod. After that, everything was blank. "How long?" he asked. 3 weeks since you arrived here," the translator said, converting the Valerian's words. "You were very damaged. Many injuries. We used our medical technology to heal you. 3 weeks. Tae-min processed this slowly. Where am I? Velar Prime, the Royal Medical Facility. You are a guest of the royal family. Before Tae-min could ask more questions, the door opened. Several figures entered, all Valerian. But the one in the center made everyone else seem less important. She was tall and regal, wearing robes that seemed to shift colors in the light. Her face was elegant and sharp, her eyes intense. She looked at Tae-min the way a scientist might look at an interesting specimen. Behind her came another Valerian, younger and more familiar. Princess Hana. No, that wasn't her real name. Tae-min remembered now. That was just the name she used with humans. The princess spoke first, her English much better than before. Tae-min, you are awake. This is good news. She looked genuinely happy, which made him feel a bit better about the whole situation. The older Valerian spoke, and the translator converted her words. I am Queen Unmi, ruler of the Valerian Empire and mother to Princess Hae-won, whom you know as Hana. Her voice was formal and commanding. You saved my daughter's life. For this, you have my gratitude. Tae-min tried to sit up, but his body protested. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. Any security officer would have done the same. The Queen's expression didn't change. No, not any. We reviewed the ship's recordings. The conditions you endured would have killed my people in minutes. The gravity fluctuations, the low oxygen, the radiation from the failing core. You survived all of this and carried my daughter to safety. She paused. You did not just save her life. You saved her existence. That was a strange way to put it. Tae-min frowned. I don't understand the difference. Princess Hae-won stepped forward. In our culture, existence means more than just being alive. It means honor, legacy, spirit. Everything that makes us who we are. If I had died on that ship, my existence would have ended, not just my life. Do you understand? Not really, but Tae-min nodded anyway. I'm glad you're safe. Both of you. He looked around the room. I should probably contact my people, let them know I'm alive. Then I can get out of your way and head back to human space. The Queen and Princess exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some kind of silent communication. When Queen Unmi spoke again, her tone was different, still formal but with something underneath, something complicated. That will not be possible. Tae-min felt cold suddenly. What do you mean? You saved my daughter's existence. In our laws and customs, this creates a debt that can never be repaid, only honored. You are now under the protection and patronage of the royal family. You cannot leave Valerian space until this debt is properly addressed. The words took a moment to sink in. You're saying I can't go home? I am saying that your future is now connected to ours. We owe you everything. The debt of existence is sacred, the most serious obligation in our culture. The Queen's eyes never left his face. You will remain here as an honored guest while we determine how to properly acknowledge what you have done. An honored guest. Tae-min repeated the words slowly. They sounded nice, but he had been a soldier long enough to recognize a polite prison when he heard about one. And if I refuse? You cannot refuse a debt you did not ask for, the Queen said simply. The debt exists because of your actions. It is not a choice. It simply is. Princess Hae-won looked uncomfortable. Tae-min, please understand, this is not a punishment. My people will treat you with the highest respect. You saved me. You are precious to us now. Precious, like something valuable you locked away in a vault. Tae-min felt his chest tighten, and it had nothing to do with his healing ribs. How long? As long as necessary, Queen Unmi said. This could take months, perhaps years. We must study this debt, understand it fully, determine the proper way to honor it. There is no precedent for a human saving a member of the royal family. We are in uncharted territory. Years. The word echoed in Tayman's head. He looked at the crystal walls, the alien technology keeping him alive, the Valerian guard standing by the door. He was light years from Earth, from everything he knew, from everyone he cared about. And these aliens were telling him he couldn't leave because he had done the right thing. "This is insane," he said quietly. "This is our way," the Queen replied. Her voice softened slightly. "I understand this is difficult for you, but you must understand our perspective. You saved the heir to our throne, the future of our entire empire. How can we simply let you walk away? How can we leave such a debt unpaid? It would be dishonorable. It would be unthinkable." Tayman wanted to argue, but the exhaustion was catching up to him. His body was still healing, and this conversation was taking all his energy. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to think clearly. When he opened them again, the Queen was studying him with that intense gaze. "You are tired. Rest now. We will speak more later. Guards will escort you to your quarters when the medical staff clears you for release. You will have everything you need." Everything except freedom, Tayman thought but didn't say. The Queen and Princess left, followed by most of the attendants. Only the medical staff remained. Tayman lay back and stared at the crystal ceiling. He had saved someone's life and somehow ended up a prisoner for it. The irony wasn't lost on him. Humans had always joked that no good deed goes unpunished. He just never expected the punishment to be quite this literal. Outside his window, he could see the Valerian city stretching into the distance, towers of living crystal, gardens that glowed with bioluminescent plants, architecture that looked like it had been grown rather than built. It was beautiful and completely alien. This was his world now, at least for the foreseeable future. Tayman closed his eyes and tried not to think about Earth, about the life he had left behind, about freedom. He tried to tell himself that it would be okay, that they would eventually let him go. But deep down, he wasn't sure he believed it. The Queen's eyes had held something that worried him. Not cruelty, but obsession. She looked at him the way someone might look at a puzzle they were determined to solve. And Tayman had the sinking feeling that he was going to be stuck here until she figured him out. The quarters they gave Tayman were more luxurious than any place he had ever lived. The rooms were large and filled with beautiful furniture that seemed to be made from living crystal and exotic woods. He had a private garden that grew plants from dozens of worlds, a bathroom with a pool-sized bath, and windows that offered stunning views of the Valerian city below. It was a cage made of gold and crystal, but it was still a cage. 2 weeks had passed since he left the medical facility. 2 weeks of endless ceremonies where Valerians he didn't know bowed to him and spoke words he didn't understand. 2 weeks of being escorted everywhere by guards who were unfailingly polite, but never left him alone. 2 weeks of being studied like a lab specimen by Valerian scholars who asked him questions about human biology, human culture, human everything. Tayman stood by his window, watching the sun set over the alien city. 3 moons were rising in the purple sky. He wondered if anyone on Earth was watching their own moon rise and thinking about him. He wondered if anyone even knew where he was. A chime sounded at his door. It was the Valerian equivalent of a knock. "Come in," he called out. The door opened and a young Valerian entered. Her name was Da-Yun, and she was the only person in this entire palace who treated him like a normal being instead of a curiosity or a debt to be repaid. She was a scholar assigned to teach him the Valerian language and customs. "Good evening, Tayman," she said in English. Her accent was getting better every day. "Are you ready for today's lesson?" "Do I have a choice?" he asked, not unkindly. She smiled slightly. Valerian smiles were different from human ones, more subtle, but he was learning to read them. "Not really, no, but I brought something that might make it more pleasant." She held up a container. Human coffee. It took me 3 weeks to find a supplier who could get it. Taemin felt genuine gratitude. Small comforts mattered when you were far from home. Thank you, Dayun. Really? They sat down and began the lesson. Today was about Valerian social hierarchy and the concept of existence debt. Da-un explained it better than anyone else had tried to. Think of it this way, she said, drawing symbols in the air with a light pen. Valerians believe that every being has an existence, not just a life, but a complete existence. Your past, your present, your future, your honor, your legacy. Everything that makes you who you are, all woven together. When you saved Princess Haewon, you saved all of that, her entire existence. But I just pulled her out of a damaged ship, Taemin protested. I didn't save her past or her honor or anything mystical like that. To us, it is all connected. You cannot separate them. Dayun's expression became serious. And now, the royal family owes you an existence debt. It is the most serious obligation in our culture. More serious than a debt between mates. More serious than anything except perhaps the debt between parent and child. Taemin sipped his coffee, thinking. So, what happens now? How do they repay this debt? That is the problem. Dayun looked uncomfortable. There is no standard way to repay an existence debt to an outsider, especially not a human. Usually, such debts only exist within families or between mates. The scholars are searching through thousands of years of history trying to find any precedent. The Queen herself spends hours every day studying the old texts. I've asked to leave 12 times, Taemin said quietly. Every time, they tell me I must stay. When does this end, Daun? She looked at him with something like pity. I do not know, but Taemin, you must understand something. She leaned forward, lowering her voice even though they were alone. The Queen's interest in you goes beyond just repaying a debt. She has watched the recordings of your rescue hundreds of times. She is obsessed with understanding how you did what you did. How a human survived conditions that would kill my people. Human biology is different, that's all. It is more than that. Your will to survive, your determination, your choice to go back for someone you barely knew. These things fascinate her. Some in the palace say she sees you as a puzzle to solve. Others say... Dayun trailed off. Say what? Others say she sees you as something precious that she cannot bear to lose. The words made Taemin uncomfortable. I'm not a possession. I know that. But the Queen lost her mate years ago, lost him to assassins. Since then, she has become very protective of everything important to her, perhaps too protective. And now you have saved her daughter, saved her entire bloodline. In her mind, you are connected to her family now, forever. Taemin set down his coffee cup harder than he meant to. The sound echoed in the quiet room. This is insane. I can't spend the rest of my life here because I did my job. I am sorry, Da-un said softly. I wish I had better answers for you. That evening, Taemin was summoned to a royal banquet. It was a formal affair with hundreds of Valerian nobles, all dressed in their finest. He was given traditional Valerian clothes to wear, though they had been modified to fit his human frame. The guards escorted him to the great hall. The hall was magnificent. Crystal pillars rose to a ceiling that seemed to show the stars themselves. Tables were arranged in a complex pattern that reflected Valerian social hierarchy, and at the center, on a raised platform, sat Queen Un-mi and Princess Haewon. Taemin was led to a seat near the royal platform. Not quite with the royal family, but close enough that everyone could see him. He was on display again. The guest of honor. The human who saved the princess. The puzzle the Queen couldn't solve. The banquet began with speeches in Valerian. Taemin's translator device whispered the meanings into his ear, but he had trouble focusing. He was tired of being paraded around, tired of being treated like an exotic animal, tired of being trapped in this beautiful prison. When the meal was served, Princess HFY came down from the royal platform to sit beside him. "How are you, Taemin?" she asked kindly. "I've been better," he admitted. She looked guilty. "I am sorry. I know this is hard for you. If I could change it, I would. Can you talk to your mother? Make her understand that I need to go home? I have tried, many times, but she does not listen. She believes she is doing what is right, what is honorable." HFY paused. "I think she is also afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of letting go. Afraid of losing something important again. My father's death changed her. She became harder, more controlling. And now you have saved me. Saved the one thing in this world she cares most about. She will not easily release her connection to you." Taemin looked up at the queen. She was watching them, her expression unreadable. Their eyes met for a moment, and he saw something there. Not cruelty, but intensity. An intensity that frightened him more than anger would have. He stood up suddenly. The hall fell quiet. Every Valerian eye turned toward him. Taemin's translator was set to broadcast mode, so when he spoke, his words would be translated for everyone to hear. "I saved Princess HFY because it was the right thing to do," he said clearly. "Not for honor, not for a debt. Because saving people is what decent beings do. But keeping me here against my will, no matter how comfortable you make it, is still imprisonment. No debt, no matter how sacred to your culture, justifies taking away someone's freedom." The hall was silent. Queen Eunmi stood slowly. When she spoke, her voice carried through the entire space. "You dare speak to me this way? In my own hall?" "Yes," Taemin said simply. "Because someone needs to. You can dress it up in fancy words and ancient customs, but what you're doing is wrong. You know it is." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, to Taemin's surprise, the queen smiled. It wasn't a warm smile, but it wasn't angry either. It was the smile of someone who had just seen something interesting. "Escort our guest back to his quarters," she said to the guards. Then, looking directly at Taemin, she added, "We will speak privately tomorrow. Just the two of us." The guards led him away. Behind him, Taemin could hear the nobles whispering in shock and confusion. He had just publicly challenged the most powerful ruler in this sector of space. As the doors closed behind him, he wondered if he had just made things better or much, much worse. Taemin didn't sleep well that night. He kept replaying the banquet in his mind, wondering what he had been thinking. You didn't challenge alien queens in their own palaces. That was basic diplomacy, basic survival. But something in him had snapped. He was tired of being polite, tired of being a good prisoner. The next morning, guards came for him early. They didn't speak, just gestured for him to follow. Instead of leading him to one of the formal chambers he had been to before, they took him up, higher and higher through the Crystal Palace, climbing stairs that seemed to go on forever. Finally, they reached a door at the very top of the palace. The guards opened it and gestured for him to enter alone. They would wait outside. Taemin stepped through and found himself in a room unlike any he had seen in the palace. It was an observatory, with walls that were almost entirely transparent, offering a view of the entire city and the sky beyond. Stars were still visible, even though the sun was rising. The 3 moons hung low on the horizon. Queen Eunmi stood at the far end of the room, looking out at the view. She wore simple robes today, not the formal dress from the banquet. Without all the ceremony and crowds, she seemed different, smaller somehow. More real. "Come," she said without turning around. "Stand with me and look at my world." Taemin walked over carefully. Up close, he could see that the queen looked tired. There were small signs of strain around her eyes, tension in her shoulders. She was carrying something heavy, and it was wearing on her. "This is my private place," she said quietly. "Very few are allowed here. Not even the High Council. When I need to think clearly, away from politics and ceremony, I come here." She finally turned to look at him. "You challenged me last night, in front of my entire court." "I did. And I'm not sorry." A small smile crossed her face. "Good. I would think less of you if you apologized out of fear." She gestured to a seating area near the window. "Sit. We need to talk honestly without all the formal nonsense. Just you and me." They sat. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the queen sighed deeply. It was a very human-sounding sigh, full of weariness. "You think I am keeping you here out of tradition?" she began. "Out of some ancient custom that makes no sense to you. And you are partly right. But there is more to it than that." "Tell me," Taemin said. "I watched you save my daughter. I have watched the recording hundreds of times. Do you know what I see every time?" She looked at him intently. "I see you nearly die, multiple times. I see you endure heat that should have cooked your internal organs. I see you breathe air so thin my people would suffocate in seconds. I see you fall from a height that should have broken your spine. And through all of it, you keep going. You keep fighting. You never give up." "Humans are tough," Taemin said. "It's what we do." "No. It is more than physical toughness. I have studied your species extensively these past weeks. You are not the strongest beings in the galaxy. Not the fastest, not the smartest. But you have something else. Something I do not fully understand." She leaned forward. "You choose to endure. You choose to sacrifice. You choose to save strangers at great cost to yourself. Why?" Taemin thought about it. "Because it's right. Because if we only help people when it's convenient or safe, then we're not really good people. We're just people who occasionally do good things when it doesn't cost us anything." "That makes no logical sense. You could have died. You almost did die. For someone you barely knew. For someone who was not even your species. Maybe it doesn't make logical sense, but it makes human sense." The queen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "I told you that the existence debt is sacred. That is true. But I did not tell you the whole truth about why I cannot let you go. Then tell me now. When you saved Heywan, you did not just save her life. You saved mine. My daughter is everything to me. She is my only child, my heir, my reason for continuing after my mate died. If she had died on that ship, I would have been destroyed. Not just sad, destroyed. My entire existence would have lost meaning." The queen's hands trembled slightly. "You gave me a gift I can never repay. You gave me my reason to live." Taemin felt something shift in his understanding. "You're not just following tradition, you're terrified," she finished. "Yes, I am terrified, Taemin. Terrified of letting you go and never understanding what you are. Terrified that if you leave, I will lose this connection to the being who saved everything I love. Terrified that I will never grasp what makes humans capable of such selfless acts." She looked away. "I have spent my entire life protecting my people through strength and control. I conquered threats, eliminated enemies, built walls around everything important to me. But I have never seen anything like what you did. I have never witnessed such pure determination to save another being." "So you're keeping me here to study me? Like a lab experiment?" "No. Yes. I do not know." The queen stood and walked to the window. "I am keeping you here because I do not know how to let you go. Because in my culture, in my understanding of the world, you are now connected to my family. To me. Forever. Releasing you would be like tearing away a part of my own existence. That's not fair to me. I know, and that is what torments me. She turned back to face him. You said I am doing something wrong. You are correct. I know it intellectually, but emotionally, culturally, I cannot make myself release you. The thought causes me physical pain. Taemin stood and walked over to her. Your Majesty, I understand that our cultures are different. I really do. But in human culture, freedom is everything. We need it the way you need air. You cannot love something by caging it, no matter how beautiful the cage is. Love? The Queen looked startled. This is not about love. Isn't it? You said I'm connected to your family now, that you cannot bear to let me go. That sounds like love to me, or at least something close to it. I do not know your words' full meaning in this context, but if love means wanting to protect something precious, wanting to keep it close and safe, then perhaps you are right. She met his eyes. But how do I balance that against your freedom? How do I honor your existence while also honoring the debt I owe you? You let me choose. You let me decide what happens to my own life. And if you choose to leave, then you let me go knowing you did the right thing. The Queen closed her eyes. I do not know if I am capable of that. I have not let anything important go since my mate died. I hold tight to everything I love because I fear losing it. Before Taemin could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the palace. The Queen's eyes snapped open. A voice came through the communication system, speaking rapidly in Valerian. The Queen's face went pale. What is it? Taemin asked. Attack! The same pirates who destroyed your transport. They have penetrated the palace defenses. They have brought weapons specifically designed to kill Valerians. She moved quickly toward the door, then stopped. You should stay here. This room is secure. You will be safe. What about you? I must go to my daughter. I must protect my people. Your Majesty, if they have weapons designed for Valerians, you walking into that is suicide. She looked at him with sad eyes. I am the Queen. Where else would I go? She left. The door closed behind her, and Taemin stood alone in the observatory, listening to the sounds of battle echoing through the palace below. His mind raced. The Queen was right about one thing. If the pirates had Valerian-specific weapons, every Valerian in the palace was in danger. But he was human. Those weapons wouldn't affect him the same way. Taemin looked at the door. He could stay here, safe in the secure room like the Queen ordered. He could wait for it all to be over. He had no obligation to help. These people were keeping him prisoner after all. But then he thought about Da-Un, who had been kind to him, about Princess Hei-Wan, who felt guilty for his captivity, about all the palace staff who had treated him with respect even though he was an outsider, about the Queen herself, powerful and broken and trying so hard to hold everything together. He thought about what he had told the Queen, about how humans choose to help even when it's not convenient or safe, about how being good means doing the right thing even when it costs you. Taemin opened the door and ran toward the sounds of fighting. The palace corridors were chaos. Taemin ran through halls filled with smoke and the sound of weapons fire. Emergency lights flashed red. Everywhere he looked, Valerians were collapsed on the floor, unconscious or worse. Guards, servants, nobles, all of them down. He knelt beside one of the guards and checked for a pulse. The Valerian was still alive but breathing weakly. His skin had turned a dark blue color. Taemin didn't know much about Valerian biology, but he knew that wasn't normal. A bioweapon. The pirates had released some kind of toxin into the air. It was affecting the Valerians, but not him. Human biology was different enough that the weapon didn't work on him. That was lucky. Or maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe this was exactly the kind of situation where being human mattered. Taemin grabbed the guard's weapon and kept moving. He didn't know how to use Valerian guns well, but a weapon was a weapon. He would figure it out. The sounds of fighting were coming from the direction of the throne room. That was where the queen would have gone to protect her daughter. He turned a corner and nearly ran into 3 pirates. They were a mix of species, all wearing environmental suits that protected them from their own bioweapon. They saw him and raised their weapons. Taemin dove behind a pillar as energy bolts scorched the air where he had been standing. He blind fired around the corner, not really aiming, just trying to keep them from advancing. He heard one of them shout something in a language he didn't know. They started to advance. Taemin looked around frantically for options. The corridor was long and straight, no cover except the pillars. He was going to get pinned down. Then he noticed something, the environmental controls on the wall. An idea formed. He shot the control panel. Sparks flew, and suddenly the corridor's atmosphere vents opened fully. The smoke cleared rapidly, but so did the normal air. The temperature plummeted. The pirates in their environmental suits were fine, but Taemin felt the cold immediately. He could handle it, though. Humans were adapted for temperature extremes. Earth had taught them that. He pushed forward, using the confusion to close distance. Hand-to-hand combat was better odds than a shootout when you were outnumbered. The first pirate didn't expect him to charge. Taemin slammed into him, using his shoulder like a battering ram. They went down together. The pirate's weapon skittered across the floor. Taemin grabbed the pirate's helmet and twisted hard. The seal broke. The bioweapon the pirate's own team had released flooded into his suit. The other 2 were on him fast. Taemin took hits that knocked the air from his lungs. One of them was strong, some kind of heavy worlder, but Taemin was fighting in conditions they hadn't expected. The thin air, the cold, the desperation. He fought like a human fights, using every dirty trick he had learned in combat training. He won. Barely. By the time the 3 pirates were down, Taemin was breathing hard and sporting new bruises, but he was alive, and they weren't a threat anymore. He took one of their environmental suits and put it on. It didn't fit right, but it gave him some protection from the bioweapon. He grabbed the best weapon he could find and kept moving. The throne room doors were blown open. Inside, the scene was terrible. Dead guards everywhere. Princess Haiwan was unconscious behind the throne. And Queen Unmi was barely standing, facing down 5 more pirates. She had a weapon, but her hands were shaking. The bioweapon was affecting her too. She was dying slowly, trying to hold on long enough to protect her daughter. The pirate leader was talking, gloating about how the mighty Valerian queen was going to die, how the empire would fall, how they would finally get their revenge for whatever grudge they held. Taemin didn't give them a dramatic entrance. He just started shooting. The element of surprise was the only advantage he had. 2 pirates went down before they even realized someone was attacking from behind. The other 3 turned and returned fire. The throne room erupted into a firefight. Taemin used the pillars and collapsed furniture for cover, firing when he had an opening. The queen was shooting too, but her aim was getting worse as the poison affected her more. One of her shots went wide and nearly hit Taemin. One of the remaining pirates threw a grenade. Taemin dove, but the explosion caught him anyway. He was thrown against a wall, his borrowed environmental suit tearing. Pain exploded through his back and shoulder, but he forced himself up. He had to. The queen was down now, collapsed beside her throne. The pirate leader was advancing on her, weapon raised. Taemin didn't think. He just ran. His body screamed in protest, but he pushed through it. He slammed into the pirate leader from the side. They crashed to the ground together. The pirate was bigger and stronger, but Taemin had desperation and determination. They struggled for the weapon. Taemin headbutted the pirate's faceplate, cracking it. Then he shoved his fingers into the crack and pulled. The seal broke. The pirate inhaled his own bioweapon and started choking. Taemin rolled away and grabbed the fallen weapon. The last 2 pirates were trying to get a clear shot, but they didn't want to hit their leader. That hesitation cost them. Taemin shot them both. Silence fell over the throne room, except for the sound of alarms in the distance. Taemin stood slowly, every muscle protesting. He looked around at the destruction, at all the fallen Valerians. He limped over to where Queen Unmi lay. She was still alive, but barely. Her skin was a deep blue, almost purple. Her breathing was shallow. Behind the throne, Princess Haywan was the same. They were dying from the bioweapon. Taemin's limited medical knowledge told him they didn't have long. He staggered to the wall controls and found what he was looking for, the environmental system. The bioweapon was heavier than air. If he could vent it and bring in fresh atmosphere, maybe he could save them. His hands shook as he worked the alien controls. He wasn't sure he was doing it right. But finally, he got the vents to reverse. The contaminated air began to evacuate. Fresh air rushed in. It wasn't instant, but slowly, painfully slowly, the Queen's color began to improve. Her breathing got stronger. Princess Haywan stirred behind the throne. Taemin heard sounds in the corridor, more footsteps. He grabbed a weapon and positioned himself between the door and the unconscious Valerians. If more pirates were coming, they would have to go through him. But it wasn't pirates. It was Valerian soldiers in full combat gear. Reinforcements had finally arrived. They saw Taemin standing among the bodies, covered in injuries and still holding a weapon protectively. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Queen Unmi spoke weakly from where she lay. "Stand down! He saved us! He saved us all!" The soldiers rushed past Taemin to help their queen and princess. Medics appeared, moving quickly to treat the wounded. Someone tried to help Taemin sit down, but he resisted. He needed to stay standing. He needed to make sure they were okay. "The human needs medical attention," one of the medics said urgently. "He is bleeding badly." Taemin looked down. The medic was right. His borrowed suit was soaked with blood. He hadn't even felt it. The adrenaline had kept him going. Now that the fight was over, everything hurt. His vision started to blur. He saw Queen Unmi trying to get up, trying to reach him. He heard her calling his name. Then the floor rushed up to meet him and everything went dark. When consciousness returned, it was only for a moment. He was on a medical transport. Through blurry eyes, he saw Queen Unmi beside him. She was holding his hand. He had never seen a Valerian cry before, but she was crying now. Her tears were silver in the emergency lighting. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have stayed safe. Why did you come?" Taemin tried to answer, but words were hard. Finally he managed, "Because it was right. Because I choose to help. That's what humans do." The Queen made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You saved my existence again. My daughter's existence. Everything I am, everything I have. You have given it to me twice now. You owe me nothing," Taemin said with effort. "Never did." "I owe you everything," she corrected. "But more than that, I finally understand. I understand what you tried to tell me. You do not save people because you want something from them. You save them because saving them is right. Because their existence matters to you. Not because of debt or tradition, just because they exist." Taemin's eyes were closing again. The medical drugs were pulling him under. The last thing he heard was the Queen's voice, soft and broken and full of something he couldn't quite name. "Sleep now. You are safe. I promise you when you wake, things will be different. I finally understand what I must do." 3 months had passed since the attack. 3 months since Taemin had woken up in the medical facility for the second time. 3 months since everything had changed. He stood in what had become his workshop, a large room in the palace that the Queen had given him to work in. He was reviewing proposals for the Human Valerian Cultural Exchange Program. It was his project now, his purpose. The walls were covered with plans, schedules, and communication from both human and Valerian officials. The door chimed. "Come in," he called out, not looking up from his work. "You are working too hard again," Da-Un said as she entered. She carried a tray with food, and that precious human coffee she kept finding for him. "You will exhaust yourself." I'm fine, Taemin said, but he gratefully accepted the coffee. Just trying to finalize the first group of human students who will come to study here. The applications are overwhelming. That is because you have become famous, Da-un smiled. The human who saved the Valerian queen twice. There are songs about you now. Did you know that? Valerian children sing songs about the brave human. Taemin felt his face heat up. He still wasn't comfortable with the attention. I just did what needed doing. That is what makes you remarkable. You do not see yourself as remarkable? Da-un set down the tray and looked at him seriously. How are you really, Taemin? Honestly? He considered the question. How was he? It was complicated. After the attack, after he had saved them a second time, Queen Unmi had done something unprecedented. She had called a full assembly of the Valerian High Council and, in front of everyone, publicly renounced the existence debt. She had said that she finally understood what true honor meant, that holding someone against their will, no matter the cultural justification, was wrong, that she had been trying to cage something precious when she should have been setting it free. She had declared that Taemin was free to leave Valar Prime whenever he chose, and then she had done something even more shocking. She had asked him to stay, not as a prisoner, not as someone bound by debt, but as a free person who chose to remain. She had offered him a role as a cultural bridge between their species, a chance to do something meaningful, a chance to help others understand each other. I'm good, Taemin said finally. Really good. For the first time since I arrived here, I feel like I'm exactly where I should be. And the Queen? Da-un asked carefully. How are things with her? That was the truly complicated part. After renouncing the debt, Queen Unmi had changed how she interacted with Taemin. The obsessive need to control was gone. Instead, she had become something else. A friend, maybe. An ally. Someone who sought his counsel not because she owed him, but because she valued his perspective. They had dinner together most evenings now. Not formal state dinners, but private meals where they talked about everything. Philosophy, politics, their different cultures. She taught him about Valerian history, and he told her stories about Earth. She shared her struggles as a leader, and he offered his thoughts. Slowly, carefully, something had grown between them, something neither of them knew how to name. Things are complicated, Taemin admitted, but good complicated. Da-un's expression was knowing. The entire palace talks about it, you know. How the queen looks at you, how you look at her, how she smiles more than she has in years, how you chose to stay when you could have left. It's not like that, Taemin protested. But even he wasn't sure that was true anymore. Whatever it is, Da-un said gently, I am glad for it. The queen has been alone for too long, and you deserve happiness after everything you have endured. After Da-un left, Taemin tried to focus on work, but couldn't. His mind kept drifting to what she had said, about how he looked at the queen, about the choice he had made to stay. The truth was, he had fallen for this world, for its beauty, its complexity, its people. He had fallen for the work he was doing, building bridges between species. And yes, he had fallen for a certain Valerian queen who was learning to let go of control and trust instead. The door chimed again. This time it was Princess Hye-won. She looked excited. Taemin, there you are. The council has approved your proposal. The first exchange group will arrive in 2 months. That's great news, Taemin said genuinely. This was what he had been working toward. Proof that humans and Valerians could learn from each other, could build something together. Hye-won's expression became more serious. Thank you, Taemin, for everything. For saving me on the transport, for saving us during the attack, for helping my mother learn to be softer, happier. I have not seen her this way since my father died. She's an amazing person, Taemin said quietly. She just needed to learn that being strong doesn't mean being hard all the time. She learned that from you. HFY stepped closer. Can I ask you something personal? Do you love her? The question caught Taemin off guard. Did he love Queen Eunmi? What did love even mean between different species with different ways of understanding relationships? The Valerian concept of existence bonds was still strange to him, and human romantic love was equally strange to them. I care about her deeply, he said carefully. I respect her. I enjoy her company. I think about her when she's not around. I want her to be happy. Is that love? I honestly don't know. Our cultures define it so differently. Perhaps that is exactly what love is, HFY suggested. Something that exists beyond cultural definitions. Something that simply is. That evening, Taemin was summoned to the Queen's private observatory. It had become their place, where they went to talk away from the formality of the court. When he arrived, Queen Eunmi was standing at the window looking out at the stars. "Thank you for coming," she said without turning around. "You know I always come when you ask," Taemin said, joining her at the window. "That is what I want to talk about." She turned to face him. "You do not have to come just because I ask. You are free now, truly free. Yet you stay. You work yourself to exhaustion on the exchange program. You attend every council meeting where your input might be valuable. You have dinner with me almost every night." She paused. "Why?" "Because I want to," Taemin said simply. "Because this work matters. Because I've found purpose here because—" He hesitated. "Because you matter to me." The Queen's breath caught. "I do not understand these feelings I have. In my culture, bonds are clear. Mate bonds, family bonds, existence bonds. But what I feel for you does not fit into any category I know. It is not the obsessive need to possess that I felt before. It is something gentler, something that makes me happy when you are near and sad when you are not. Something that makes me want you to be happy, even if that means you might leave someday." "That sounds like what humans call love," Taemin said softly. "Is that what this is? Can such a thing even exist between our species? We are so different. We think differently, feel differently. Our very biology is different." Taemin reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. He took her hand in his. Her skin was cooler than human skin, and her fingers were longer, but the gesture felt right. Maybe that's what makes it special. We're different in so many ways, but we've found something that matters anyway, something that exists beyond all those differences. "The council will talk," Queen Eunmi said, but she didn't pull her hand away. "They will say it is inappropriate, that a queen cannot have such feelings for an alien, that it goes against tradition." "And what do you say?" She smiled, and it was the warmest smile he had ever seen from her. "I say that I spent months trying to control you because I could not bear the thought of losing you. And now I have learned that the only way to truly keep something precious is to let it be free. If you choose to stay with me, to be part of my life, I want it to be your choice. Not duty, not debt, not tradition. Just choice." "I choose to stay," Taemin said. "Not forever necessarily. I don't know what the future holds, but right now, in this moment, I choose to be here. With you." They stood together, watching the stars and the 3 moons rise over the alien city. 2 beings from different worlds, different species, different ways of thinking. But somehow, impossibly, they had found each other. The door suddenly burst open. A messenger rushed in, looking panicked. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but there are human diplomats at the palace gates. They demand to speak with you immediately. They say they have come to retrieve Taemin and they will not accept refusal." The Grand Assembly Hall was packed with people from 2 worlds. On one side stood the Valerian High Council in their formal robes, looking stern and traditional. On the other side stood the human diplomatic delegation, 5 officials in dark suits looking equally serious. In the center stood Tai Min, feeling like he was being pulled apart between 2 worlds. The lead human diplomat, a stern woman named Ambassador Park, was speaking. "We have been trying to reach Tai Min for months. Every communication was blocked or delayed. We only recently learned the full extent of what happened. That he was held here against international law. That his freedom was restricted based on alien customs that have no legal standing in human space." Queen Yunmi sat on her throne, her expression carefully neutral. Beside her, Princess He Wan looked worried. The Valerian High Council stood rigid, clearly uncomfortable with being challenged in their own palace. "Taemin is a human citizen," Ambassador Park continued. "He has rights under human law, rights that supersede any cultural customs or debts. We demand his immediate release and safe transport back to human space. If this demand is not met, there will be serious diplomatic consequences." One of the Valerian counselors stood. "The human was never held against his will. He is an honored guest who saved the life of our princess and queen. To suggest otherwise is an insult to our culture and traditions." "An honored guest who was told he could not leave," Ambassador Park shot back. "That sounds like a prisoner to me, no matter what polite words you use." The argument escalated. More counselors joined in. More human diplomats added their voices. Everyone was talking about Tai Min, arguing over him, but nobody was actually asking him what he wanted. It was like being property again, a thing to be claimed by one side or the other. Finally, Taemin had enough. "Stop," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but something in it made everyone go quiet. "Just stop, all of you." Ambassador Park turned to him. "Taemin, we're here to help you, to bring you home where you belong." "Are you?" Taemin asked. "Because it seems like you're here to prove a political point, to show that humans won't be pushed around by aliens. But did anyone think to ask me what I want?" "What you want?" One of the Valerian counselors frowned. "But surely you want to return to your own people, to your own world." "Do I? How do you know?" Taemin looked around the room at all the faces watching him. "For months, everyone has been deciding what's best for me. First the Valerians, now the humans. But I'm not a prize to be won or a political tool to be used. I'm a person, and I'm the only one who gets to decide what happens to my life." Queen Yunmi stood up from her throne. The entire room went silent. When she spoke, her voice carried throughout the hall. "The human is correct. We have all been treating him as an object instead of a being with his own will." She looked directly at her council. "I renounced the existence debt months ago. Taemin is free to leave if he chooses. He always has been since that day." "Then why is he still here?" Ambassador Park demanded. "Because he chose to stay," the Queen said simply. "Not because of obligation or debt. Because he wanted to. Because he found purpose here. Because he believed in the work he was doing." She turned to Taemin. "But if that is no longer true, if you wish to return to human space, I will not stop you. No one will." Ambassador Park's expression softened slightly. She looked at Taemin. "Is that true? You're staying by choice?" "Yes," Taemin said firmly. "When I first arrived, yes, I was held against my will. That was wrong, and the Queen has acknowledged that. But things changed. I changed. I found work here that matters to me. I'm building bridges between our species, the cultural exchange program, the diplomatic initiatives, the educational projects. I'm doing things that make a real difference." "You could do that work from Earth," one of the other diplomats pointed out. "You don't have to stay here." "But I want to stay here." Taemin took a deep breath. "I understand that this might be hard for you to accept, but I've built a life on Velar Prime. I have friends here. I have work that fulfills me. I have... He glanced at Queen Unmi. I have reasons to stay that are important to me. Ambassador Park studied him carefully. The rumors we heard, about you and the Queen, are they true? Tae-min felt his face heat up, but he met her eyes steadily. My personal relationships are my own business. But yes, Queen Unmi and I have become close. That's one of many reasons I choose to remain here. The room erupted in whispers. Valerian counselors looked shocked. Human diplomats looked confused. Princess Haiwan was smiling despite the tension, and Queen Unmi's expression had softened into something warm. Ambassador Park held up a hand for silence. Tae-min, I need you to understand what you're saying. If you stay here by choice, we can't protect you the way we could if you were being held against your will. You would be giving up certain rights and protections under human law. I understand. You would be living permanently in alien space, among alien people, following alien customs. I know. And if things don't work out, if you change your mind, it might not be easy to come back. I understand all of that, Tae-min said firmly, and I'm still choosing to stay. Not because anyone is forcing me. Because I want to. Because this is where I belong right now. The ambassador sighed. She looked tired suddenly. Very well. If this is truly your free choice, then we will respect it. She turned to Queen Unmi. But we will be watching. If there is any sign that he is being coerced or held against his will, we will return. And next time, we won't be asking permission. That is fair, the Queen agreed. I welcome your oversight. Tae-min's freedom is genuine. He may leave whenever he wishes. We will not stop him. The tension in the room began to ease. The human delegation looked dissatisfied, but accepting. The Valerian Council looked relieved, but troubled by the implications. Change was hard for everyone. Ambassador Park approached Tae-min privately. Are you sure about this? Really sure? I am, Tae-min said. Thank you for coming. Thank you for caring enough to check on me. But I promise you, I'm here because I want to be. She nodded slowly. Then I wish you well. And Tae-min, you've done something remarkable here. You've started something that could change relations between our species forever. That's worth being proud of. After the delegations left, after the formal ceremonies were over, Tae-min found Queen Unmi in her observatory. She was standing at the window as always, looking out at the stars. You stayed, she said without turning around, even when you could have left without consequences, even when your own people came for you. You chose to stay. I did, Tae-min confirmed, joining her at the window. Why? Truly, why? Because I meant what I said during our first real conversation in this room, about how humans choose to do things because they're right. Well, this feels right. Being here, doing this work, being with you, all of it feels right. She turned to face him, and there were tears in her eyes. Silver tears catching the starlight. I love you, she said. I do not say it the way humans do. My people do not have those exact words. But what I feel for you is what I believe love must be. You have changed me. You have taught me that strength can be soft, that holding tight means nothing if the other person is not free to leave. You saved my existence twice, but more than that, you taught me how to live it properly. Tae-min took her hands in his. I love you too. I don't know how this works between our species. I don't know what the future holds. But I know that right now, I want to be here, with you. They stood together in the starlight, two beings from different worlds who had found something impossible and made it real. In the months and years that followed, Tae-min's cultural exchange program became a model for human-Valerian cooperation. Hundreds of students from both species came to learn from each other. Princess Haiwan became one of its strongest advocates, using her position to promote understanding between their peoples. Da-Un published papers on human resilience that changed how Valerians understood other species, and Taimin found his place between worlds. He was not quite Valerian, not quite just human anymore. He was something new, a bridge, a translator, a living proof that different species could not just coexist, but genuinely care for each other. His relationship with Queen Unmi raised eyebrows and started debates that would continue for years, but slowly, gradually, it became accepted. Not because people fully understood it, but because they could see it was real. They could see how the stern queen softened when he entered a room, how the human who had been so determined to leave had chosen to stay, how two beings who should have been impossibly different had somehow fit together. One evening, a year after the human delegation had come for him, Taimin stood in the observatory teaching a mixed class of human and Valerian students about Earth history. They asked him why he had stayed when he could have left. He thought about the question carefully before answering. Because existence isn't about where you are, it's about who you choose to be and who you choose to be with. I could have gone back to Earth, back to what I knew. But I chose to stay here and build something new. Something that had never existed before. Do you miss Earth? One of the human students asked. Sometimes, Taimin admitted. But I've learned that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's purpose. Sometimes it's choosing to be part of something larger than yourself. In the back of the room, Queen Unmi watched and listened. When the class ended and the students left, she approached him. That was beautifully said, she told him. I meant every word. He took her hand, the gesture natural now after a year of practice. I don't regret staying. Not for a single moment. Even though it means living between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. I don't need to fully belong to one world or the other, Taimin said. I belong right here, in the space between. Building bridges, helping others understand each other. Being with you. That's enough. That's more than enough. She smiled. That warm smile that was reserved only for him. You saved my existence twice, but every day you stay, every day you choose to be here, you save it again. You remind me what really matters. Not power or tradition or control, just connection. Just choosing to care about others and letting them care about you in return. They stood together in the observatory, watching the stars and the three moons, while somewhere in the palace, human and Valerian students studied side by side, learning that the differences between species were smaller than the things that connected them. Taimin had come to Velar Prime as a prisoner, unwilling and angry. He had stayed as something much more profound, as proof that humans could not just survive impossible odds, but could choose to build bridges instead of walls, could choose connection over isolation, could choose to love across any divide. That was the real strength of humanity, he had learned. Not just the ability to endure, but the courage to choose compassion even when it would be easier to choose fear. To choose hope, even when it would be simpler to choose cynicism. To choose to build something beautiful, even when it would be safer to build nothing at all. And in making those choices, he had helped two species take the first steps toward truly understanding each other. Not as humans or Valerians, but as beings capable of caring about each other's existence. That was worth staying for. That was worth everything.